Do you think it's fair to say that US politics have the largest impact on global politics from any single country? If your answer is no, well, we've prepared a number of reasons to share with you about why US elections and US politics have arguably the largest impact on many other global powers. So why are US elections so important for other countries? On our channel, That's How You Choose Your President, we like to share simple explanations for you to understand how the US elections work so that you can see how this current election campaign unfolds. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel for more information on how the US electoral system works. General overview. US elections significantly influence global politics and impact other countries in various ways, primarily because of the United States' dominant role in international affairs. Here are the key ways in which US elections affect the world. Number 1. Foreign policy direction. The outcome of US elections, especially the presidential race, can lead to shifts in the country's foreign policy, which can alter global relations. For example, diplomatic relations. Changes in US leadership often bring shifts in diplomacy. For example, the Obama administration pursued multilateral diplomacy and global cooperation, like the Iran nuclear deal, while the Trump administration favored more unilateral actions, such as withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords. Defense and military strategy. US presidents can change defense priorities, which affects global military alliances like NATO, arms deals, and military interventions, as seen with the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. Number 2. Economic impact. The US is a major player in the global economy, and changes in its economic policy can ripple across the world. Trade policies. Different administrations may emphasize protectionism or free trade. For example, Trump's trade war with China had global consequences, while the Biden administration has focused on re-engagement with allies and more predictable trade policy. Sanctions. US elections can lead to shifts in sanctions policy, influencing global markets, particularly in energy, finance, and high-tech industries. Sanctions on countries like Russia, Iran, or Venezuela affect global oil markets and international relations. Monetary policy. Though US monetary policy is primarily governed by the Federal Reserve, the president's economic agenda can indirectly affect decisions on interest rates, which impact global markets and currencies. Number 3. Climate change and environmental policies. The US stance on climate change is influential globally. It's hard to argue against that, as it is one of the world's largest polluters and a major player in international climate negotiations. The Paris Climate Agreement. The US rejoining the agreement under the Biden administration reaffirmed global commitments to tackling climate change, impacting international environmental policies. Energy policy. US elections can shift policies on renewable energy versus fossil fuels, affecting global markets, especially for oil-producing countries and those with investments in green technologies. Number 4. Global governance and multilateral institutions. US leadership in institutions like the United Nations, World Trade Organization, and International Monetary Fund often shifts based on the outcomes of elections. Different administrations support multilateral institutions to varying degrees. For instance, the Trump administration reduced engagement with the United Nations and cut funding to the World Health Organization, while the Biden administration has re-engaged with these institutions. Global norms and democracy. US elections are often seen as a barometer for global democracy. US advocacy for democracy, human rights, and the rule of law can shift, influencing global democratic movements and alliances. Number 5. Geopolitical alliances. The US election results impact global alliances and rivalries, which means there is a very delicate influence that the US foreign policy has. Europe and NATO. US presidential candidates' stance on NATO and European defense can either reassure or cause concern in Europe. For example, Trump's criticism of NATO raised questions about US commitment, whereas Biden reaffirmed its importance. Asia and Indo-Pacific strategy. US elections also influence relationships in Asia, especially with China, Japan, and South Korea. A tougher stance on China can heighten tensions in the region, while a focus on diplomacy can stabilize relations. Middle East peace and conflicts. The US plays a significant role in peace processes and conflicts in the Middle East, such as with Israel and Palestine and in Syria. Shifts in US policy can change the balance of power and alter conflict dynamics. It's an incredibly delicate measure. Number 6. Technology and cybersecurity. US elections also impact global technology governance and cybersecurity policies. In an ever-growing tech-related world, this is pretty important. Regulation of tech companies. US policy toward big tech companies affect global regulations, particularly around issues of privacy, data protection, and market monopolies. Think of Amazon, for instance. They're a company that connects all over the world, but they're an American-based company. So the regulations placed on a corporation like Amazon can greatly affect that market. Elections can lead to new strategies for combating global cybersecurity threats, including addressing foreign interference in elections or cyber espionage, which are an increasing concern worldwide. For example, it is alleged that Russia had a massive cyber influence on Trump's electoral campaign in 2016. Number 7. Soft power and cultural influence. There is also an influence from the country's soft power, which impacts its global image and cultural reach. For example, the global perception of US leadership. How the world views the outcome of US elections can shape the global perception of democracy and governance. The 2020 US election, for example, had wide implications for how democracy is seen globally, particularly following the January 6th Capitol attack. Cultural diplomacy. US culture, media, and values resonate globally. That's undisputable. The direction of US elections can either enhance or diminish the US's cultural influence globally. Number 8. Immigration and refugee policies. US immigration policies have a direct effect on countries that are sources of migrants or refugees. Shifts in US immigration policies affect countries that rely on remittances or are grappling with migration crises. Refugee intake policies, especially concerning conflict zones in the Middle East or Latin America, can alter the landscape of global humanitarian efforts. Number 9. International law and human rights. The US is a key player in international law, and its elections can influence global rights efforts. Different administrations prioritize human rights to varying degrees. For example, a US administration more focused on human rights may push for stronger international actions against authoritarian regimes, while a more isolated administration might deprioritize those efforts. The US can influence international treaties and agreements on issues such as arms control, war crimes, and international justice, impacting how global legal norms evolve. Ban Ki-moon, former UN Secretary General, said the US has a special responsibility in the world, and every election has far-reaching implications for global peace, security, and human rights. So, in summary, US elections do have a wide-ranging impact on global politics, influencing economic trends, alliances, international governance, and basically the global balances of all power. But in what ways do you think the US has the most influence? Let us know in the comments section below. And check out our channel for more videos about how the US electoral system works. If you found this video helpful for your understanding, take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel for more content.